You might have seen the term Blackpill popping up on your TikTok For You page recently, or you might have seen this guy Clavicular trending and doing his rounds on social media. And Clavicular is the face of Blackpill. And Blackpill is essentially just a set of beliefs that say that looks determine almost everything. They determine who you date, they determine your job, they determine how socially liked you are. Looks are basically the most important thing towards determining your life outcome or your life satisfaction. And this can be viewed through as it was earlier on through a biological determinism lens, so that it's actually your biology that determines how attractive you are. But it can also be viewed more recently through, I think, post-2020, through the lens of, yes, it's a cynical worldview, but that you can actually improve your looks, and that actually improving your looks is the best way to increase your life outcomes. So in this video, I wanted to take a look at the psychology of the Blackpill and try to see what we can learn about this ideology through a scientific lens. So the first, challenge to the Blackpill is probably whether looks are objective and subjective. And kind of like everything in life, the answer is that it's complicated. So in one study, they asked participants to rate faces. If the faces were all rated in one order, then that means that looks are very highly objective. But if faces were all rated to different orders, then that means that looks are almost entirely subjective. So when they ran this experiment, the differences between all of the faces had 60% attributed to a objective order, so they had a similar order, and 40% of that difference was attributed to having a unique order. And so attraction to faces seems to be mostly objective, but it has a substantial subjective component. So even just looking at people without knowing anything about their personality or being exposed to them before, factors that are also psychologically actually turns out important. Just looking at different people's faces, people will find different things attractive, but more or less people will agree and find the same things attractive. And you might ask about how much of this is just cultural and genetic. And so first of all, when babies are born, babies will look longer at more attractive faces than not. And so this suggests that looks are actually more biological because it's assumed that the baby hasn't had a chance to get a cultural upbringing yet. Also, across cultures, there are actually similarities in finding the same faces more or less attractive. And so what this shows is that attraction has a very strong biological basis. It's probably the same among all humans because of our evolutionary past, rather than something that's cultural. Even though culture does influence attractiveness, it does so probably to a smaller amount. And it does so mostly through probably something like hairstyle or something kind of more so peripheral and not the actual underlying bone structure. And so what do people find attractive? So men and women will find a high forehead attractive, higher eyebrows, thinner eyebrows, larger eyes, the eyes being lighter with a darker eyebrow, longer eyelashes, even if you use mascara, a smaller nose, smaller chin and smaller third of the face, fuller lips and a small mouth, rosy cheeks, and long, thin, straight hair, generally preferred than short, thick, wavy hair, but this is a subject of a lot of controversy. And different studies actually will find different results, particularly for stuff like hair. Overall, though, the effect of any one of these traits is actually very low. But what makes people attractive is when they have these features, they tend to run together in women, and they contribute to what's sort of known as a neonatony or being baby-faced. And people who have these features all together, they're more attractive. But any particular feature is not necessarily more attractive. What about in men? So what women find attractive in men is higher muscularity in the face, especially being lean, having darker eyes, although this is also a kind of a source of controversy, it seems. Generally, women will prefer larger chin and wider jaw and a longer half of the face. So a more powerful jawline, sort of like Clark Kent or sort of like Superman. They also prefer deep-set eyebrows. And the deeper your eyebrows are, the more it is a sign of dominance. But too much deep set is actually also unattractive to women because it's probably seen as way too aggressive. And women will also prefer for a man to treat her kindly. So if a man is too kind of masculine, too aggressive, that's also a no-go. But he needs to be a little bit aggressive. And generally more aggression is preferred. Aggression as in, instead of I use the word aggression, but really I should be using the word dominant. So in both, men will find attractive in women and women will find attractive in men is prominent cheekbones. Men will prefer higher cheekbones as well. Homogeneous color in the skin and having it free from any sort of blemishes. And there's actually evidence that smooth skin will actually correlate with a higher resistance to parasites. Symmetrical faces in general are also more attractive, but not too symmetrical, because if they're perfectly symmetrical, they will actually be less attractive than faces which are mostly symmetrical but have a small kind of blemish or a small misfeature. And so that's basically what people will find more attractive in men and women. But the question remains, and if you had all these features and made you more attractive, how would your life meaningfully change than if you didn't have these features? And so let me introduce you to the halo effect. The halo effect is that we lump good features together. So if someone shows evidence that they have one good quality, then we will assume that they have other good qualities as well. And in terms of attractiveness, this is a type of halo effect. It's called the attractiveness halo effect, I think it's called. But it's often called what is beautiful is good. And here's some evidence. The first is that people will assess attractiveness immediately, in less than a second. In general, attractive people will fare better in romance. Big surprise. Or at least in getting somebody to like them, right? So men will report higher marriage satisfaction if they're dating somebody who is more attractive. So the woman is more attractive. Attractiveness also will predict, attraction. This is kind of obvious, but this is especially true in short-term relationships, and this is also especially true in speed dating events and dating apps too. Attractive people do better than that, though. They also will fare better in school. Attractive people are incorrectly perceived to be more intelligent than people who are unattractive. And as a result, attractive students will get higher grades. Also, attractive people will fare better in jobs too. So you go to school, you get to a good university, and then also you will do better in jobs where people who are attractive are judged to be more qualified for the role. They're more likely to receive promotions. They're more likely to have higher salaries. And attractive applicants are generally preferred for jobs when you're hiring. And that might also be not just because you're attractive, but because you're also, remember, perceived more intelligent, you're perceived to be more competent, you're perceived to be more trustworthy as well. All of these they all feed into each other. It's kind of hard to disentangle what increases what life outcome, but it's just evident that your general life outcome, the more attractive you are, the more it is increased. And imagine that an attractive person actually does something wrong. Well, they're more likely to suffer less consequences for their actions. So attractive criminals will receive lower sentences, but not when they use attractiveness to deceive. Also, people are judged to be less culpable in general the more attractive they are if they make a mistake or in a situation that's a little bit ambiguous. Overall, attractive people are also more socially desired. People who are attractive are praised more in a social setting. Attractive people catch more attention. And attractive people in general are believed to be more trustworthy, more sociable, they're better adjusted, and they're also happier. In terms of growing up, too, attractive infants will receive more attention and affection from their mother. So even as soon as you're born, you haven't even had a chance to do anything, you're already receiving the benefits when you're attractive than when you're not. And actually, growing up in school, adolescents will base their self-esteem primarily through attraction. And that's probably because personality or individual accomplishments have not shown through yet. And it's also true that a lot of younger people who enter puberty earlier, they have better relationships with friends, and they have a better, a body image as well. So attractiveness plays a huge role also when you're entering into puberty. But there are also some negative effects of attractiveness. There's quite a bit to go over here. Girls who enter puberty earlier, they do more drugs, they drink, they smoke, they're more depressed, they have eating disorder, they have a greater delinquency rates, older friends, and then obviously earlier dating. So people who develop earlier, they're also judged to be more mature, and with that comes more responsibilities, but also and with that comes more benefits, but also comes more responsibilities. So they're judged to be sort of, kind of like ready for that. And so implicitly they're going to engage in more, like delinquent behavior possibly. And there's also evidence that we assume that people who are attractive, they're also more vain and more materialistic as well, and possibly have greater number of sexual partners. There's also some evidence that the traits that we assume, they might vary by the gender. So in one study, for example, these positive traits only emerged when men judged women. So when men judged men, the traits didn't appear. But in other studies, they did appear. So it's a little bit unsure, but there is possibility that it's different. And through all of these benefits, how will that affect your life? Well, I'm going back to something called labeling theory. And there's an experiment by Snyder and colleagues where men were shown a false photograph of an attractive woman that they were about to speak to on the phone. And the men anticipated the woman, as we just discussed, to be more sociable and to be more likable. And so when the men spoke to her, the woman was actually also judged to be more warm and more likable as well. And that's because she responded to the way that the man talked to her. And so what I want you to think about is that people will conform to what is expected of them. If the world treats them, harshly, negatively, they're going to think that other people, they're going to become cynical of other people. They're going to become cynical of the world. But if somebody treats you with love, right, just because of how you look. So like we talked about earlier, just being born, your mother shows you more attention because you're more attractive. Then there isn't any particular findings about this, but I strongly believe that you're going to see other people as kind. You're going to think that everybody loves you, right? It's going to be easier for you to socialize. You're going to be less anxious, less depressed, and probably the like, because you have a warmer view of the world. You think you are loved. You feel like you belong in a way. And also the vice versa, where if you feel like you don't belong, and that's why a lot of the Blackpill is kind of going more mainstream now, but it's largely been sort of you're on the outskirts, right? And I think that's very symbolic of what people actually feel. If they're unattractive, they don't feel like they're part of the world. And so, and at the same time, people will assume that other people will experience the world the same way. So if somebody's attractive, they might assume that people will. It's like, why would you be anxious? Why would you be non-confident? Because everybody, the world is so warm. Everybody's so kind. Like everybody's been so kind to me. You're no worse than me. So everyone's going to be kind to you. But that's not necessarily true, right? As we've seen through the evidence here. And it's possible that people might also be the other way too, that people will generally be less trusting, less sociable, and that's going to come across, and people are going to like them even less. So it becomes all a cascading effect that it influences itself. It's like a positive reinforcement loop, right? So before I go, I wanted to bring up one critic here of the Blackpill, and I wanted to compare two videos. So here's the first.
I'm ready for the looksmaxxing bros to call me chopped for saying this, but your physical appearance or like negative looks will never deter you from entering a academic, professional, career room worth entering, or dare I say, from finding a long-term partner who actually likes you. But your vanity, self-obsession, and insecurity certainly will. So do with that what you will. Yes, looks matter. Looks give you positive first impressions. They get you attention. But whenever you spend all of your energy and work just focusing on your appearance, you will lose absolutely everything else. And trust me, the whole everything else is a lot more important than your jawline.
And generally, what I've seen about this person, Sloan, is that people are very, interested in how she's so successful. But I think that actually success builds on itself. So I think that, if I'm taking a look at Sloan here, so if she's growing up attractive, she's more likely to become a model, right? If she becomes a model, she wins a pageant, she can go on social media, she can say, oh, I'm a model, I'm a pageant. So she's going to benefit from the short form content where it actually prioritizes looks at. She's going to have, a claim to fame. I'm the Texas winner of whatever, right? And so that makes her automatically interesting. That boosts her social standing, why people want to follow her, right? Or view her or interact with her TikToks. And what that does is then it also makes her more popular at school, because then at school, right, she's attractive, she's a pageant winner, and now she's also famous on social media. The kids will treat her more, kindly. They're going to be more in awe of her. People are going to want to make a good impression onto her. They're going to want for her to like them, right? And she's likable as well. And so if she wants to run for any extracurricular, if she wants to run for a leadership team, if she needs a democratic process, she's popular, so she's going to get, possibly voted in. And also the teachers, not only do they also have the positive effects of the halo effect, but they're also then going to see how popular she is. And so then they're also going to, possibly benefit her, if, oh, like, sorry, I couldn't turn in, my homework on time. It's like, okay, it's okay, Stone. Maybe, I don't know. I haven't lived her life, but it's possible. And so all of these they build on each other. And so when someone like her kind of says, hey, looks, they don't super much matter. You can still enter any academic room. Can you though? Because the person you've become, she might say like, oh, you're so cynical, like, oh, you don't try at school. That's why you don't go to college. But why are you so cynical? Why don't you try well at school? Well, it's maybe because you think that when you go to school, everybody there hates you. And so you start to hate school too. And why do people hate you? Well, it's maybe one of the reasons is that you're hard to look at, you're unattractive. Or maybe it's a lacking of a protective factor too. So let's say you do something bad. If you're attractive, oh, it's like, it kind of goes away. It's whatever. But if you're unattractive, then it might become much worse. People are going to take that much more seriously. Like we've seen with the jurors and the other studies as well. So in general, it all builds into who you are, and it's kind of hard to draw a line of this is me, and this is kind of the plate that I've been handed by life, right? So let's take a look at another video here, and this is about somebody with an opposite experience.
I just went to Starbucks to order a vanilla latte with an extra shot, and as I am walking up to the door, I happen to notice this beautiful girl walking up to the door as well, and she has a Death Cab for Cutie t-shirt on. So as we're both waiting, I just look over at the gal, and I'm like, so what's your favorite album by Death Cab? And she looks over at me with a glare, and she is like, stop talking to me. I'm not remotely interested. And she says it loud enough for the entirety of the Starbucks to hear, and everybody in the Starbucks looks at me, but I have no idea where I went wrong there. I'm so puzzled. I thought I was being nice. What did I do?
In high school, dude, I used to literally not talk for I'm pretty sure the longest I've gone without speaking was 4 days. I didn't say a single word. I did not say a word for 4 days straight.
Honestly, I'm looksmaxxing, so it's fine if I'm bleeding everywhere, and it's fine if I die, because at least I'll be dead with positive cantle tilt.
And so what we see in this video here is that it's different, right? Like they have such a hard time, even if they don't want to enter into a romantic interaction, right? Then people automatically assume something negative about them. People will treat them negatively. And that's what I'm talking about. They're going to become more cynical. They're going to hate life. And that's also going to come across. They're going to become less warm, less trustworthy, less sociable. Everything cascades and it builds up. So in a way, I think that scientific empirical findings and scientific theory from psychology, at least, support the sort of the Blackpill ideology a little bit. And so there are definitely negative effects towards being attractive, but there are also very strong positive effects. It doesn't determine your life. I would say that's a little bit too much, but it does push your life very heavily too. And becoming more attractive, that's a fast way to improve your life, I would say. And I think that would probably be a relatively unpopular opinion if you polled people in general. So anyways, thank you very much for watching this video. I'm going to be making hopefully another video on the psychology of the attractive person in a few weeks. I'm not sure when that's going to come out. So maybe you can subscribe. We're at three subscribers now. Very intense, very interesting. And I'm going to be also going much more in depth into what we find attractive. So not just physical features that we find attractive on the face. I'm going to be talking about the body. And I'm also going to be talking about psychological features maybe in another episode. You'll have to find out. Okay, if you like this video, I think you're going to like that one because I've been working on that one for quite a while. Okay, thank you very much.